The Times article also spent a little column space on how the deal could benefit the Iranian people. The reason why many Iranians welcome it, because of US sanctions and threats, the limited business opportunities that European companies opened up in Iran have largely faltered after the Iranian nuclear deal. So what the New York Times article does not mention is the humanitarian impact of US sanctions. These sanctions have restricted Iranian resources, both in terms of available medical equipment needed for fighting the coronavirus and Iran's capacity to support people's needs during the crisis, according to international human rights watchers. Maybe the article could point out the humanitarian benefit the China-Iran partnership could bring. Instead, the article highlighted the desperation as the result of US sanctions that has pushed Iran into the arms of China. Very vivid use of words. But it sounds disrespectful, even condescending, as if the Iranian government and people can't think for themselves. Similar expressions have been used often for China's Belt and Road Initiative, the usual gimmick by China or by some international journalists. Rather than humanitarian relief and economic opportunities, the New York Times article focused on the criticism of how much the Iranian government is preparing to give away to China and the concern in the US that potentially dangerous flashpoints the deal is likely to create in the deteriorating relationship between China and the US. Look, cooperation in fighting terrorism, drug trafficking or human trafficking and cross-border crimes would be something any two decent countries in the world would do. Similar texts would appear in the US State Department's official press release any day with, say, Mexico, Colombia, or the Philippines. But when it comes to China and Iran, all of a sudden, it's exaggerated into some sort of geostrategic conspiracy. To enlarge the potential scope without sound evidence is to peddle fear based on hot air. According to the article, the deal would give the Chinese a strategic vantage point on the waters which much of the world's oil transits. A strategic vantage point? China only has one foreign base so far in the entire world, in Djibouti, East Africa. That pales in comparison with the US's 800 military bases all over the world. Should Washington be alarmed by such a deal? The US could forge a partnership with Iran if it chooses to. Otherwise, don't blame others for doing so. By the way, with two wars in Iraq and one still going on in Syria, what has the US brought to the Middle East in the past 40 years with these mighty military capacities? The article further analyzes that at a time when the United States is reeling from recession and the coronavirus and increasingly isolated internationally, Beijing senses America's weakness. Now, reportedly, this deal was conceived in 2016. A former Iranian ambassador to China told Iranian media that it should have been signed a few years ago. So Beijing did not all of a sudden jump on the opportunity to take advantage of American weakness. The deal might not be targeting the US at all. When a country needs energy and another needs the investment, they could naturally form partnerships. There could be all kinds of security benefits that arise from such a partnership. Again, this doesn't have to actively target any third country. My second example comes from the Washington Post. The paper published the article, "Trump's two main foreign foes plan a major pact" on July the 14th. The analysis of this matter is not as original as the New York Times, but what it lacks in novelty, it seems, is trying to make up by, well, making up things. For example, while the Times is at least honest in reporting that the military cooperation is to fight the lopsided battle with terrorism, drug trafficking, and cross-border crimes, the Washington Post asserts it would increase intelligence sharing and security cooperation, including in possible missions in Syria and Iraq. The word possible is permitted here, normally in paper, in print, if there are sources or analysts who say so. But in this case, where's the basis? Was it just the journalist's humble opinion? Then it needs to be noted. Another outlandish line comes from a sensational quote that sounds wildly tenuous, if not totally irrelevant. The quote says, "An Iranian regime whose revolutionary identity is premised on countering U.S. imperialism and Islamophobia is about to ratify its total economic and strategic dependency on a Chinese government that keeps over 1 million Muslims in re-education camps." As I said, China needs Iran just as Iran needs China. Why should such a deal make Iran totally dependent on the Chinese government? When countries change leadership, they could put on hold Chinese investment projects as they see fit, and this happened a few times. Where is the complete dependency that the expert mentioned? I would like to see such an example before the paper incorporates such a bold claim. Another quote from an obscure reporter even likened the proposed deal to the 1828 Treaty of Turkmenchay between Persia and Tsarist Russia, under which the Persians ceded control of territory in the South Caucasus. Factually irrelevant and logically insane. I would like to revisit this article when the details of the deal come out. If the deal does not mention such details, will the Washington Post, by the way, take back this story or make corrections or apologize for having incorporated such far-fetching quotes?
آنچه در مورد ما میگویند